I don't think this is something we could ignore anymore, folks. This seems to be getting pretty serious. So serious, in fact, that the boss of Formula One has actually made a statement about it. And now I'm beginning to wonder whether or not we'll actually see something that happened in the 2000s happen again. Now, you might be expecting me to wield the foam of doubt over this particular matter, but quite frankly, I don't have any doubt over what I'm about to say. The return of Toyota to Formula One is clearly a matter of when rather than if. Not only are the conversations about this matter starting to get a little bit more legitimate and heading toward the top of Formula One itself, we will not see Toyota doing the Toyota way and basically shoehorning it into Formula One no matter what it takes. They are actually going to do it in a proper manner this time, using every single little bit of thing that European single-seater racing has to offer, and it's something that I think will put Honda to shame if they decide to go in blindly with Aston Martin, hoping for success instantly, and then realise that Lance Stroll is there. But yeah, the allusions to the late 90s and early 2000s, they are really, really eerie, because Honda dipped its toes back into the sport with BAR for 2000 after witnessing some success with the Mugen Honda arm under Eddie Jordan's watch, whereas Toyota ideally wanted to arrive for 2001, but delayed said debut for a further year to gain additional experience and personnel. This was not something they took lightly, because they lost their $11 million deposit to Bernie Ecclestone, and I'm pretty sure that Bernie kept it safe. Fast forward to now, Honda and Toyota are at it again, exploring Formula One in different ways. Whilst Honda has a clear path with Aston Martin, Toyota's potential return remains more strategic and deliberate, focusing on their technical partnership with the likes of Haas. The whispers have even reached Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali, highlighting the seriousness of these developments. Could Toyota at some point in the future be so interested in Formula One that it either decides to go it alone and become the 12th Formula One team, or might they do something more conservative and just buy outright the likes of Haas from Gene? Right now, Gene doesn't really want to sell because things are going well at Haas, so maybe Toyota decides, well, okay, Haas, we had our fun, we're going to do something, and then you'll end up being a customer or something. It's still very much up in the air, but the fact that Toyota is even flirting with the idea of returning to Formula One in some kind of full-scale capacity is a huge deal for the sport. May I remind you, if this happens, Formula One will be playing house to three of the biggest automakers on the planet. There'll be Ford with Red Bull, there'll be Honda with Aston Martin, and Toyota with Haas. That will certainly get America's attention. But anyway, here's what Stefano has had to say about the rumours and his bid to try and calm things down, but I think things will be going in a certain direction. Ahem. We must be cautious and take things slowly. At the moment, everyone would like to enter. But then, we must guarantee a solid structure for the future. For now, there are 10 teams, and in 2026, the 11th team will arrive. We must be cautious so that things are naturally addressed in the right way. Evaluations will have to be made if there are requests. To date, I have not heard anything about it, but as always, we will evaluate all the options. In the same article, the CEO also says that if any entity expresses an interest in joining the sport, it would have to demonstrate a similar mindset to the top teams currently. Due to the cost cap throttling teams from spending up the wazoo, teams are no longer seen as unsustainable, unprofitable, and merely speculative investments. Although I must admit that $600 million just to enter the sport, that's pretty unsustainable, unless you're one of the biggest automakers on the planet, that being Toyota, and them actually getting their act together when it comes to dealing in motorsports with their Toyota Gazoo operation. And I do think that this is a thinly veiled hint toward any big international manufacturer that if you are going to be entering Formula One, you had better do it in a manner that is actually serious, sustainable, and will actually help Formula One improve its bottom line. Because quite clearly, Toyota, when they arrived in the 2000s, they were none of that. It was not sustainable. It was not profitable. They lost a lot of money because why did they leave in 2009? It was not making any money and there was a financial crisis. And therefore it was a speculative investment because they were hoping for glory and then they didn't do that. Because in that 10 years of Toyota alluding to Formula One, they started their idea in 1999 and ended in 2009, they spent an estimated $2 billion on this speculative investment in the hopes that they would win the championship, either drivers or teams. Ideally teams, of course. No constructors title, no drivers title, no wins, only 13 podiums, so barely a dozen of them, a baker's dozen, and 3 pole positions. Yeah, and then spending $445 million in 2008 alone. I would feel pretty bad if I spent $2 billion on something and I didn't win a world title. Fortunately, it seems that what the Japanese manufacturer is doing right now is much more sustainable and incredibly smart, spreading itself all over international motorsport. Should things progress with their Haas partnership, which so far is looking really solid and has actually really improved and gained more scope since its first arrival back in the end of the summer. I reckon that unlike Honda, who wants success immediately as soon as they start work with Aston Martin and Adrian Newey, I think Toyota is going to be very much softly. They are going to be taking many years if they even hope to become their own team or buy out the Haas team. I'm not going to lie, Toyota even entertaining the idea of returning is still a bit of a shock, a really good shock though, but now actually having explored this for this video, it really shouldn't have been a surprise. Despite Ayo Komatsu having worked at BAR, who were Honda-powered, before then moving on to Renault, he would have cultivated friendships with those who were working with Toyota's F1 team at the time, including the likes of Toyota Gazoo Racing's Global Director of Motorsport currently, Masaya Kaji, who is said to be good friends with the Haas team principal, and I wouldn't have been surprised that talks were being finalised when Masaya Kaji actually was a guest in the Haas team garage as early as the British Grand Prix of 2024. That was the beginning, and having Komatsu's now 20 plus years of experience in the sport would be valuable information for Toyota. And honestly, in my opinion, if Toyota were even going to be coming back into Formula One, partnering up with Haas, now led by Ayo Komatsu, is a really safe and logical bet, because Komatsu, even though he just came out of nowhere and has now arrived on the scene as a really solid team principal, he has over 20 years of experience working in Formula One in different divisions, most notably in the engine department, which is exactly what Haas needed, and now Toyota's taken a look at that. These two guys who have now risen to prominent levels of power in motorsport, and they've now decided to go, yeah, let's work together, mate. And this technical deal, it's not one-way traffic. On the surface, Haas provides support in terms of experienced staff who know their way around Formula One, as well as their machining tools, whilst Toyota returns the favour with its own technical support and staff, as well as full access to its operations in Cologne, and of course their legendary wind tunnel, which the team can use on top of their current access to the one based in Maranello. From the way I see it, based on what Domenicali said, I reckon, and okay, I will get the foam of doubt out for this one, is that maybe Toyota entered really preliminary discussions with the boss of Formula One about a possible entry as the 12th team of Formula One, or even maybe discussing the idea of, well, what if we were to just do dead man's boots and buy out an existing team? It's very early right now, because from what we've seen with Toyota, they are not going to be rushing into any decision, much like how Honda rushed into a decision working with Aston Martin, and I don't know how that's going to go, but one thing is for sure. Toyota is not going to be making the same mistakes that they did last time. They want to make sure that everything is sustainable, feasible, and likely to bring sustained success. And right now, this is just very preliminary talks, if at all. They're watching to see what happens with the regulations, quite frankly. But as I touched upon earlier, this is not something I think Formula One would just throw away and think was completely ridiculous or not serious at all, because the three biggest automakers would be in their sport in some shape or form. That is too exciting to ignore. That is an American presence that Formula One really wants. Because yes, I know Toyota is a Japanese automaker, but their presence in America is really big. But I can understand why some people might be skeptical, because up until now, Toyota's real commitment to the sport was not really certain, because back when they announced the deal with Haas, Kaji was playing down speculation regarding anything more than offering just a simple partnership and maybe some additional person power and technical gubbins. But going into the 2025 season, according to this report via motorsport.com and Racing News 365, the sentiment has changed and gained traction. And I bet you that Haas narrowly missing out on 6th place in the constructors, and in the second half of the season, really troubling the likes of Aston Martin, would have piqued the interest of Toyota, and then realizing that, hey, maybe these guys we're working with actually know a thing or two when they actually have a guy who knows what they're doing and doesn't just believe in making merch with their face on it, and realizing that their upgrade path, most notably the real lowest ebb of Austin 2023, was something that was as dead as the dodo. Oh, and a slight tangent for a second there. Mike Crack has cracked over at Aston Martin. They've got a new team principal, that being Andy Cowell, and he knows a thing or two when it comes to engines. He's a bigwig there. I await his first flattery of Lance Stroll with great interest, as I am sure you are. But anyway, let's get back to what Messiah Kaji said. And so, right here, I'll lay it out for you. We are, of course, studying the technologies for 2026, and even current technologies. I feel we are gradually moving in that direction. As of now, though, we're not at a stage where we would redirect all our resources there to a full F1 return. What happens after 2030 is still uncertain. We're working on various new technologies, so whether our vector aligns with F1 remains to be seen. If we had our own team, we could choose which drivers to put in the car. In that sense, it would indeed bring us closer to putting drivers in F1. But realistically, we have to evaluate how much money and how many staff members would be required to make that happen. Now, I can easily understand that for some of you, this just says nothing. But for me, this says everything. Because you've got to be looking what's going on, not just with Haas, but also with Alpine and High-Tech and the junior categories. Quite frankly, I am so passionate about this that I am prepared to be making this video on a Sunday when I really should be packing for yet another vacation to Center Parcs. Sorry, I just got a little bit sweaty because I just got really passionate about it. Excuse me a second. The shift in sentiment about the idea of an F1 return has advanced considerably in just 6 months. This is a big deal for me, and I am starting to see reasons why this is serious but not an imminent arrival. This will take time, and could take on many permutations. It all depends on the cost. So in that regard, you could applaud the likes of Toyota for taking a more rational stance when it comes to a return to Formula One. They're not going to be rushing into anything. So far, the partnership they've got with an existing Formula One team has actually yielded some positive results. It's not been a money pit, it's actually been quite collaborative, and it's got 2 men in charge of this collaboration who are really good friends and are really seeking an active involvement and engagement together. This is not just 2 bosses who have no relationship to one another from back when they were much younger. They are not just seeking to gain profit from this, although profit is still a factor. There seems to be a genuine desire of these 2 people who got to know each other when they were just juniors in their respective categories and fields, and now they have the power in which to make this happen. Right now, their alliance with Haas is what is happening and what will remain for the following season. However, the allusion to the technologies of the 2026 regulations they're exploring, and the speculation of what engine regs could be afterward in 2030 when the rules might change again, are in the interests of the manufacturer. And as I recall from what Domenicali ruminated months ago on Autosport, a pathway for Formula One after the current rules could be to return to simpler power units with less reliance on electrical power, and instead internal combustion engines which are powered by sustainable or synthetic fuels that would go some way for F1 maybe meeting its net zero target for that year, as well as maybe upping the entertainment factor. Basically, I think Formula One wants to appeal to the old school fans who want to bring back V8s or V10s, bring back the noise, the loudness, and having just a standard internal combustion engine, proven technology that can work with brand new innovations when it comes to fuels. What Sebastian Vettel's doing with the Race Without Trace campaign, when he just sticks an engine that has been retrofitted to add new fuel in old classic 90s cars. Yeah, I must admit that I do miss the roar of the V10s. That is a really, really special period. Everyone needs to hear them at some point in their lives if they're an incoming F1 fan. But I must say that this is only an idea in the back of Stefano Domenicali's brain, because right now there are more pressing matters to attend to. But if this does actually go somewhere, I think Toyota will be in a really, really keen and very handy position. After all, Toyota hasn't fully committed to just making electric cars in the future. They've hedged their bets on every single powertrain you can think of. They've got standard petrol cars, hybrid cars, plug-in hybrids, hydrogen power, and of course full battery EVs. They're ready for anything, wherever the prevailing wind in terms of power will take. And based on these assumptions, and based on what I have heard from my leads in the paddock, I believe that eventually the idea might be that come 2028, there might be an idea for Toyota to enter as a power unit supplier and be a works partner with Haas, if not their own team. While this remains speculative, it aligns with the gradual steps Toyota is currently taking to immerse itself. And of course, this would require renegotiating or even terminating Haas's current extension and deal with Ferrari to power them throughout 2028. But things could happen earlier than expected if Toyota's confidence in F1 grows and they are prepared to pay Ferrari to go away 1 year early. Yes, again, I do have to get the foam out for this one because Haas and Ferrari have been bosom buddies for many, many years. In fact, Ferrari powered their entry into Formula One because give Gunther Steiner some credit. He managed to make that team happen within 18 months and they scored points in their first season. That is something to commend. So it's going to take a lot of negotiations to make them switch to Toyota and fully commit. But based on Kaji's comments, I really do think that is a logical step in where they could go. And it's going to take a lot for Haas to move away from Ferrari because not only do they have power units, but they have a reliable source of drivers to call upon in the junior ranks of the Ferrari Driver Academy should they wish to choose. They did that with Mick Schumacher, and they're doing the same now with Oliver Behrmann. But unlike with the German, Haas now, under Komatsu, is really committed in giving Behrmann all the attention in the world that he needs to prepare for his first full season. But that being said, and I do not need the phone for this one, Toyota is doing the same thing. They are really getting themselves stuck into the world of single-seater junior academies and motorsport collaboration. Not just with Haas, but other entities as well. This might have flown under the radar a little bit for some of you, but there has been a name change over in Formula 2 and Formula 3, which sees Toyota's involvement move up a gear. Not only do they have one of their own talents in the sport, that being the Super Formula champ of 2023 Ryotomo Miyata racing in 2025 again, but now they are working with Hi-Tech to form Hi-Tech TGR in many other categories. Everywhere Hi-Tech is, it's now Hi-Tech Toyota Gazoo Racing. What they are doing right now is getting into bed with a proven junior team who has a plethora of different motorsporting categories in not just F2 and F3, but also GB3, there's the F1 Academy to consider. There are many avenues that Toyota might consider for all of their young prospective drivers, stick them in there, and if they're good enough, we can then port them toward Formula 3, and then F2. And I know that many of you are saying, well, wait a minute, Miyata's driving for ART. What's going on there? Well, I think that was already negotiated because this collaboration with Hi-Tech and Toyota, it only was confirmed a couple of weeks ago. And for many people who are regular frequenters of this channel, you will understand why this actually leads into my biggest conspiracy theory going right now. Because Toyota's lead man and endurance star, Ryo Hirakawa, is not Haas's reserve driver for 2025, but Alpine's. And quite frankly, I believe that Alpine will become Hi-Tech from 2026 with Mercedes power, and that Oliver Oakes, who actually is one of the founders of Hi-Tech GP, it's all really clear to me. And Hirakawa's appointment here with Toyota, Hi-Tech's collaboration, it's clear as day. Now you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, doesn't that mean that maybe Toyota's hedging its bets and maybe getting into bed with Hi-Tech instead of Haas? Well, no. I don't think that's the case. But there is something that Haas does not have that I think Toyota is really keen to expand upon, and it's something that right now Alpine has and might be keen to sell up or maybe move on to new overseers. That, of course, being a junior academy with an existing infrastructure, as well as a fleet of old machinery that they can use at their beck and call, and I'm pretty sure that Renault will be more than happy to allow them to use. It's a turnkey deal, and Toyota is doing it. They've got one. Haas doesn't need to make up one of their own. They don't need to put any expense into that. They can focus on going racing in Formula 1. Toyota can just get to work with Hi-Tech. There you go. Hi-Tech benefits because they then get big drivers who can then help them in their own junior categories and bring them success and more sponsors. And of course, more of these talented drivers going to them instead of other teams. It benefits all these entities. All three people, they win out of this, with Toyota taking this seriously. And Hirakawa is already confirmed to be doing an FP1 session at the Japanese Grand Prix next year, and no doubt that he and their other reserve driver, other Hi-Tech refugee Paul Aron, will do the same. Whilst both them and Franco Colapinto will test at length the A523, the 2023 car. And what will be really important and beneficial for Toyota is that none of these drivers, well, until Colapinto does get the confirmation as the second driver next to Pierre Gasly, they are not subjected to the 1,000-kilometer limit that has been imposed after what Max Verstappen did with his private Imola test, and this will affect Lewis Hamilton since he is an active driver. Okay, that's pretty interesting, I might hear you say, but What will Haas benefit from this, really, aside from having maybe a steady supply of junior drivers? Well, in a scenario where Haas doesn't sell itself off to Toyota entirely, this could be a golden opportunity for Gene Haas to spread his brand across different motorsports should the partnership become so close that Haas CNC, the people that make the machining tools, make a benefit in supplying machines and tools that Toyota can use to manufacture parts for their cars and other motorsporting categories. Spread the Haas awareness across all of European motorsport, which is something I suspect Honda will be watching very closely, and hoping that their current works partners take heed of. Now, whilst Toyota's movements are undoubtedly being watched closely by Honda, I think that the two strategies will remain very distinct. Toyota's partnership with Haas signals a methodical approach, gathering knowledge and resources before potentially making any sort of move back into Formula One full-time. This contrasts with Honda's established role with Aston Martin, showing that the two manufacturers are charting very different paths. Because as I alluded to earlier, Honda wants to win right now. Toyota, they are going to be taking their time. And this is being encouraged by the likes of Saudi Arabia, who for the longest time wants to find success in the sport. They have a track in it. At one time they wanted to buy the sport, but then got rebuffed. And now the next best thing for them to do is to partner multiple Grand Prix and then maybe buy into an existing team, that being Aston Martin. They want to win. Honda want to win. The Strolls want to win. But right now, the Bottas son is really showing no signs of actually winning anything. When was the last time he had a podium? In fact, when was the last time he even scored a point? Well, that was before the summer break of 2024. And Honda will be emboldened by this for the fact that the costs, when compared to the 2000s, are far smaller, much more sustainable. And they've had so much glory. Although, again, in 2021, they almost called time, but then they won championships, and now they can think they can win championships regularly. Yeah, that's the Max Verstappen effect for you. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the current owners of Team Silverstone remain steadfast in their belief, though, in retaining the services of Lance Stroll, regardless of the pushback from Honda and Aramco. And if he fails to capitalize on a newly designed car, powered by an automaker which has powered numerous championship runs in the 2020s, and then fueled by one of the biggest companies in the world, then words will be had and anger will ensue. This will either see Honda, Aramco, and the other Aston Martin F1 team shareholders push the Canadian unceremoniously out of the sport, or it might get to a point where Papa Stroll has had enough, he'll take his son, the Aston Martin brand, sell up his stake in the team, and go home. And quite frankly, I think Honda and Aramco will be fine by that. They'll take up that stake, I'm sure of it. And they will then eventually become a full works team. It'll be Honda Aramco or Aramco Honda, take your pick. Either way, I can imagine that Honda's ambitions will take Toyota's movements into account. But folks, come on, aren't you at least a little bit excited? This is a period in Formula One's history which is looking really rosy, like back in the 2000s, when all of the big international automakers are fighting each other, and even some of the privateers are getting in on the action because of the cost cap, which is something really beneficial. Williams, you've got Haas, you've got Aston Martin, all of these names, they're wanting to have aspirations, the car makers want to make that happen. It's all gravy. This is going to be fun. So Toyota coming back as a full works operation with Haas or even as their own team, the 12th team, I am seeing it more and more now. Much like I am seeing more and more Jack Doohan's future hanging by a thread, as Alpine's Academy is seemingly throwing one of its own stars to the lions. And these lions, they speak Argentinian. So if you're from Argentina, please be nice to Jack Doohan, give him a chance. Something I say more about in this video here that you can go and watch right now.